And we are on page 113 of the Peace Pilgrim, the discussion of some of her writings and her life, a little bit of her biography and her teachings. And these we're reading on the extensions of pacifism. So she's talking about pacifism, and really what she's doing is broadening it out to ahimsa in general, but doing it in a piecemeal way, just kind of expanding the idea of what does it mean to be nonviolent in that sense. And so, what we're going to read today, it's a new section, and it says the following quotations were among the few notes that Peace Pilgrim carried in the pockets of her tunic. All right, so we know that she only carried what, that little notebook, a pen, and a comb in the pockets of her blue apron. That's all she had. That's all she carried. And so these writings that we're going to look at right now are notes that were found in this pad that was in her pocket. All right, General Omar Bradley. This is a quote from General Omar Bradley. Wars can be prevented just as surely as they can be provoked, and we who fail to prevent them must share in the guilt for their dead. Right. Yeah, that's it. That's a good reminder that we're not aloof from these things, that all of us are responsible for peace. Right? And even if we're not in the countries involved in war, we're still a part of the humanity that's suffering from it. And so even though we can be quite removed, and even though we can find a nice little oasis that we live in, that still our hearts should be aware of the suffering, and our prayers should be activated. And in our lifestyle here, just like Jesus says, he says, in as much as it has to do with you, live at peace. Right? So you may not be able to do much. We're on the other side of the planet from this thing, but in as much as it does have to do with you, live in peace. And so, that can include all of these things. My favorite thing going on right now is this group of Heidi. You can tell us the name of this group. These Heidi has been sending me some of these recordings of this. It looks like a movement really led by women, a resistance through peace, a resistance through peace. And so they're singing, they're meeting and at these rallies and singing these beautiful, beautiful songs.
Yeah, it's called Singing Resistance.
Singing resistance.
Yeah, it's going on across the country.
Yeah, I encourage you guys. Heidi has sent me a few of these recordings. They are a staple to me right now. They are so joyful. They are so moving, and they're really good old style gospel kind of some really good old gospel kinds of music. But yeah, I find them so invigorating. They're wonderful to listen to when you first get up. They just such a positive, healthy mood for the day. So if you are somebody who likes to do those kinds of things, I so encourage it. First thing when you get up, have a beautiful song about peace by these women who are leading a movement that is growing. I can see it growing. I'm finding these things in different places around the net now. And I think it's a beautiful way to respond to the dark in the world right now. It's a beautiful way because it's full of light, it's full of joy, it's got a lot of gravitas, so there's a conviction and a renunciation behind it, so it's got a depth to it. I really see something in it. I'm very excited about it. I'm very happy that it's happening. And I think that's what Omar Bradley here is talking about, that it's necessary for all of us to be a constant pressure toward peace, right? Through our own development, through the controls of our own anger, understanding our own minds, and learning to transcend all of the instinctual, egoistic tendencies of the mind, and to hook that mind to the divine, so it becomes a direct expression of the divine, of God, and of the peace we're looking for. So this is what he's talking about here. He says, wars can be prevented just as surely as they can be provoked. We get a choice, right? Are we provoked, or are we at peace inside? If we get provoked, if we get hooked, we get pulled into these fights, that is what causes wars on the global scale. We who fail to prevent them must share in the guilt for the dead, right? We don't close our hearts and run away. We don't hide from it. we realize, oh my God, I stood against it, but it's still happening. My heart stays open, and you continue to do what you can to not see yourself as defeated. You don't have to resign to war. You know, you continue your resistance, but it becomes an expression in a different way. Right, from General Douglas MacArthur. So I guess she just heard these different quotes and wrote them down on her pad. I have known war as few men now living know it. Its very destructiveness on both friend and foe has rendered it useless as a means of settling international disputes. Boy, how's that for a timely quote? War is useless for establishing world peace. It's it can't be done. The war to end all wars did not end all wars, right? We've been at war in this country in some form or another for the last 35 years. It's just constantly going on. And so we have to find a way of developing ourselves, of being able to find a movement in ourselves, um, to counter this power that is disrupting the world right now. Pope John the 23rd. If civil authorities legislate for or allow anything that is contrary to the will of God, neither the laws made nor the authorizations granted can be binding on the consciences of the citizens, since God has more right to be obeyed than men. Okay. That's probably got a few hooks in it for a few people just reading it like that. And so as the Vedanta would say, if the laws of the land go against anything that's in the nature of humanity, the love, the wisdom, the being, if we write any laws that cause us to have to live in a contrary way to what we are, um, that there's not going to be uh, a path to right living, to right life, to a right livelihood. It's going to be a confusion. There's going to be turmoil. There's going to be confusion. There's going to be pain involved. And so it says, when he says God has more right to be obeyed than men, God is not a right, and I won't diminish God by putting him in a field of rights as if he has unalienable rights. He is everything. He's beyond that entire playful child's play argument. It's not a matter of whether God has the right to be obeyed. It is that God is your highest ideal and nature, and we cannot but obey, right? We can be rebellious through our teens, but life itself, which is God himself, will train those things out of us. Selfishness will never feel good. It will always come with a price. Anger will never be rewarding. It will always come with a price. So there is the divine law which supersedes this law of the land. So regardless of how the politicians are doing, um, that really has nothing to do with it. God alone is the answer to these foibles, to these troubles. And God, not in the man in the sky sort of way, but God as love within your own heart and your surrender to manifesting that in as pure and free a way as you possibly can. This is how we respond to a world at war, right? This is how we expand ourselves in a time of contraction. Dwight D. Eisenhower, every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in the final sense a theft from those who are hungry and are not fed, those who are cold and not clothed. Speaking as one who has witnessed the horror and lingering sadness of war, as one who knows that another war could utterly destroy this civilization, he warned against the military-industrial complex. Right? But that's a beautiful statement. Every gun that is made, all of this expenditure, and somebody, of course, on some of the YouTube videos around this, you'll see this where somebody will go and talk about how much we've spent in the first month of the war. And we compare that to the price tags of what would it have cost us to put everybody in college? What would it have cost us if we gave all the homeless a home to live in? What would it cost us? And we find that even for one day of war, could fund free health care for the country, could have paid for free child care across the country. It could have given free maternity leave to families to spend time with their newborns and their new kids. It could have taken care of all of those things just the first couple of days, right? What is this disease of selfishness that says that there's no money for the well-being of humanity, but there's plenty of money for destroying it, right? This is what he's saying. He's like, look at what you're choosing to spend your money on. And the next time your conscience asks you the question, why does God let people go hungry? Well, you filthy ignorant person, God didn't do it. You did when you went to war. You did when you decided that this is how we were going to spend this money. Right? These aren't questions for God. These are always questions for ourselves. Why did I let somebody go hungry today? There's people in Santa Barbara that are hungry that I didn't go out and make a sandwich for. I could easily have done it. I've got plenty of food in the kitchen. Right? And so we got to wake up in this way. And you don't have to do big, huge things. So many of us cripple ourselves because we think, oh, I can't do that. I can't join that effort. I can't make it every Wednesday. I can't cook all day on Saturdays. You don't have to. Make a sandwich. Make one sandwich a day if that's all you got. And if you're in a place where there's homeless or there's suffering around, take that one sandwich a day and take a walk and give it away. If you don't want to make a sandwich, take a $5 bill and go for a walk and ask mother to lead you to a person that it would be helpful to. Uh, you know, Pray for peace in the face of everyone you pass. May you be peaceful. May you feel the inspiration of the common welfare for one another. You know, may you know that I have a fond regard for you as a human being. Just to walk and send out these vibrations, to be Californian, these vibrations of peace in the way that you live. This is where your religion hits the ground. This is where it becomes practical, right? You can say it's just practice. I'm just practicing to realize God by being a servant. Fine. If you want to say it that way, say it that way. But really, just take every opportunity that you can come up with in the day to generate a loving thought, a positive thought, a helpful thought, and just send it out there on the waves, like the Tibetan flags blowing up on the mountains there. John F. Kennedy, mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. War will exist until the distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the warrior does today. I love that statement. That is when you know that society is in balance. When we honor the conscientious objector as much as we honor the soldier, right? Then you will know that we are in balance, that there is nothing noble about violence. There is nothing noble about taking someone's life because you disagree with them, right? No matter how we package it, no matter how many times we prance around airports, letting them get on the airplanes first and, saying our nice little, oh, I appreciate your service, right? No matter how much of that, we will not be in balance as a culture and as a society until we understand that those who refuse to fight are as much of, and if not more, an ideal of beauty than this ideal of the warrior, right? This egotistical, testosterone-driven, you know, type A personality kind of approach to world peace, which has not worked. It's not going to work. As a matter of fact, it's going to get worse if we keep on with this path, right? So we must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. War will exist until that distant day when the conscientious objector, the person who refuses violence, refuses to go to war, until that day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the soldier does today, that people would go to them and say, I appreciate your service, that you refused violence, that you stood up against war, right? Lyndon B. Johnson, the guns and the bombs, the rockets and the warships, are the symbols of human failure, right? And so to not let them be celebrated, right, as they are, this whole mask of patriotism, what a misguided, not patriotism in its true form, where your country is upholding the ideals of universal love, of unconditioned love, when your country is standing up and providing, saying, building a statue in the harbor that says, "Come, send me your poor, send me your downtrodden, let them take refuge to here." When that was the ideal, that was the time for patriotism. This warmongering, this arrogant, destroy your whole civilization approach is not to be honored as patriotism. It is the mental development of a mongrel, the mental development of an animal, someone who has not yet, not even become human, let alone divine. Right? So we must not honor it. We must not play along and think that this flag waving disguise in the name of a selfish, greedy, horrible ideal is not the way. Throwing people out of I'm getting political here. Let me not do that. But it's here, the politics is not the important part. It's the ethics, it's the morality of humanity that's important, and the people we need to start speaking from inspiration, not from an attack, not from a need to beat it down, but a need to drown it out. Just like this movement, the singing, to drown out this horrible lie of an ideal that's being projected right now, and to stand up for the dream of the heart, a world peace, you know, a world of human beings being divine.
Swami, I have a question.
Yes.
I come from a family of soldiers, and I'm just wondering if there is nuance in this or if it's being heavily generalized because a lot of like war that like my older family members, not like maybe what's currently going on now, but it was to keep like people in other countries from being terrorized by
Yeah.
extremist groups, and they were giving jobs to people in other countries so that they wouldn't turn to terrorist groups, and it was like keeping terrorist groups from like dominating an entire nation, which in turn kept like our country from being dominated by this like terrorist organization. So is that like still like totally just dishonorable and disgusting, or
No,
is
no,
there
no.
nuance when it comes to protection and
No,
war
no.
for protection?
Yes, oddly enough, within Maya, there is a dharmic war, a war of righteousness where unrighteousness is powerful and forcing itself on people who do not choose it. A war that arises from that is a dharmic war. It's a war for the right reason, for the right cause. Those are the wars where, like our war in World War II.
Hmm.
Our country got so much honor for that afterwards because that was a dharmic law, a dharmic war. That was a great injustice in the world. It was a real plague on the values of humanity. So yes, there is a time to fight, and there is a time to honor the warrior, and there is a time to honor the soldier and to be patriotic behind the country because its values are divine values, because its values are meaningful values. In the days though that have followed, we've gone to war for nothing but greed, for our own advantage in the world, to put ourselves ahead of the world, to put countries in subservience to ourselves, not letting them be self-governed, not letting them determine their own paths, even if we disagreed with them. So yes, it really does depend on the nature of the culture and what it is that you're really fighting for. But you'll see that no matter how horrible the war may be, it's always promoted as, you're either American or you're not. It's in or out, you're a patriot or you're a traitor. Right? All this manipulation that goes on, and they play it loud, and they play it constantly, and they get even more intense on the worship of I've of things. The number of flags that went up after 9/11. It's like it changed the country, and there has to be an accounting though in these things. There has to be an accounting because war countries who are dedicated to a divine ideal aren't attacked. If when you are actively trying to love and when you're actively trying to lift up and when you're actively trying to take all of us together into oneness, into a higher space, a better life, a better world, that things will go as they need to go. It's when you're doing things behind the scenes and misrepresenting yourself in front of the scenes that this strangeness begins to happen, where you start having to lock down your schools and your grocery stores and and your public spaces. Uh, most cultures, if they had all of the violence going on, the senseless violence, the violence that doesn't seem to have any point that we're having, most people like would sit down and say, you know what, something's wrong. Something's wrong with the way that we're doing things. Something's wrong with the way we've established things. If you've got people on a regular basis walking into a school and killing children, something is sick. And it's not just the person with the gun. It's the culture around that person. Our culture is broken. Our ideal is broken. We need to sit down and reevaluate how are we building our communities? How are we putting together our families? How are we ensuring that people have resources, to be, and not just mental health. Mental health is itself the warning. It's just a symptom. It's not the cause. It's not that now we've got a whole bunch of mentally ill people running around. It's because something is wrong and people's minds are out of balance because the society around them is out of balance. And we all have our own ideas about what that might be, but none of us has a forum for it. The community should be holding forums and conversations, and people should be out and talking about this. What do we need to do? How are our needs not being met? What is behind this? And this is all has to do with world peace. This is how we do get there. It comes down to personal relationships. We need to get into the families and find out, why is this domestic violence becoming so predominant? Why is child abuse and child sexuality being, I mean, you can see the problems. I mean, it's dancing in front of us flagrantly these days. And I'm so tired of hearing about the new findings in the Epstein files and, oh, new files being, and nobody's being prosecuted.
Mhm.
Nobody's being investigated. It's the biggest sham ever seen. And it's just, wow. No wonder we're at war. No wonder we're in turmoil. No wonder people are doing, this is just, all suffering, Sri Nisargadatta says, is an inquiry, an invitation to inquiry. It's a time for us to stop assuming that we're doing it right and that we're the best in the world and we're the richest and the greatest and the most blah, 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 blah. We are dying. We're suffering. We are in pain, and we have to as individuals stand up somehow and begin really actively, like what Peace Pill, her whole life was, her viewing herself as a butler in God's dining room, where she just is constantly scanning for an opportunity to serve. We can't blame our politicians, as sick as that section of our society is at this point, as out of balance as they are. We voted for them and we've put them there, and that speaks to all of our values and all of our habits and all of our lives. And so when we inquire, we have to start here, go inside. Where's the violence in me? I have gotten rid of my iPad and gotten rid of my watching the daily news and everything because I saw so much violence developing in me. I'm a monk. I live in the best of circumstances. And I'm like, wow, if I'm feeling and being provoked to that violence just by watching the news, civil war is a sure thing. It's like there's people out there that don't have a nice community of balanced spiritual seekers around them like I have the privilege of having, people that I see peace in their face when I look at them. I see love in their eyes. I can imagine if I was out in the world and, living in some rural place, I was re watching this news, what kind of animal would I become, you know, in the face of this? And so it really is a time for us to look at ourself. That's all we really have charge over, right? And to become this person of peace, this person of love, this person of nurturing. And if nothing else, to have our intention of goodwill become the energy that pervades our presence when we're out and about. That people do not doubt we're on their side. That we will listen, we will hear, we will do what we can to alleviate suffering. And so I come again to that group of singing women, which I think by necessity is being led by women. I think it's not that I think all men are bad at all, but I think that we've used our power in a very, very unhelpful way for too long. And so
Would it be fair to say that, like, in an unjust war or like a non-dharmic war, that we shouldn't idealize warriors instead of saying that we should never idealize soldiers and warriors? Because what is the difference really between somebody who is a soldier in a just war, sacrificing their life for the good of others, and someone who is like a heavy renunciate like monk giving up their like material world for seeking God? Both are for the good of humanity
Mhm.
in the terms of an unjust war. I guess I just don't appreciate like a statement that like we should never give any like glory or anything to soldiers. I understand that like currently there's an unjust war going on, but I think it would be fair to recognize the nuance between soldiers who have like laid down their lives for the good of others versus like what we're seeing and experiencing right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, certainly as human beings, everybody deserves that respect and that whatnot. In an undharmic time, it's a hard call. It's like those people that rounded up all the Jews and
Hmm.
put them in concentration camps were officials, and they were just doing what they were commanded to do, and they also joined a military for the good of their country and for the good of their. So it's a difficult question. I hear what you're asking, and I also come from a military family. My father was in the military, and um, yes, but I think what I would be saying is that if if our war is dharmic, that respect is natural.
Mm.
We wouldn't have to have a government screaming at us to be patriotic. Uh, you know, um, as an individual, yes, and it would depend on the individual because some people, I mean, especially the way we've got things set up in the country, where if you don't have any options in life, you join the military. So the myth of the soldier who's doing all of this for the good of humanity, even that is in question.
Mhm.
It's like a lot of people are doing this because they have no way to get educated without it. They have no way to get out of their dead hometown without it. I think a large number of soldiers are joining because they didn't have any other options,
Mhm.
or easy options, and also because the way it's presented, when you look at the when you look at an ad for joining the military, uh, I mean, it's not just telling you the benefits. I mean, there's worshiping going on there. The camera work and the the imagery, the symbols, and so we're not being asked to think. We're being
Mm.
asked to worship. And to give a blanket approval to anything and a blanket gratitude for the attempt. I'm not, I'm not a hater of any of that. I'm not even down on military. I understand in a realistic way we need one,
Mhm.
and I do think there's a good way to use it and a positive way to use it. And really, the fault of undharmic wars is having undharmic leadership.
Mm.
And I think there's no argument really capable. Nobody could argue. And if they want to argue, I'm just going to sit and stare at them in disbelief. that we are in a very undharmic time,
Mhm.
that we are not serving our ideal. We don't have an ideal right now. You know.
But I also feel that at the grassroots level, if we don't change at the grassroots level, we really need soldier to protect country. From the base level, people behavior is not changing. So there is bound to be a violence.
Hmm.
And how to
Mhm.
prevent that violence? I mean, just to protect the small community also, we need people. So this is a large country. Like
Hmm.
for instance, many time in India, like terrorists are killing innocent people without any cause. So those time we really want to honor the soldiers.
Mhm.
And I mean, some of the soldiers are not because they don't have a work. Some of them are really patriotic. They really want to have a say in their country.
Hmm.
So that is my opinion. That yeah, even for the Mahabharat, I mean that was a what do you say? It's a fight for dharma.
Yes.
It has, in that one many people died, but still they had to fight.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah. No, I think yes. My point is if we are dharmic as a nation, as people, then you don't have to require that people honor policemen and soldiers and firemen. That's a natural thing. Like firemen, that's always dharmic. It's like it's always good. And so and they're loved and they're respected. I mean, there's a general fond regard toward firemen in American culture. Is it because somebody ran around, waving flags and telling us to honor our firemen? Are there ads on television with Old Glory waving behind a stormy sky with, people running and no, because it's not necessary, because they are doing good for people. And in the world of post-World War II, we didn't have to tell people to honor soldiers. We didn't have to tell people to be patriotic because people were proud of what we were doing. People were proud of what we were standing for. I grew up in an America that had a very strong ideal. We were here to help the world. We were here to love. We were here to give. And it wasn't until Vietnam and those eras where we started to get a sort of a shadow government that was working counter to those ideals behind the scenes, unbeknownst and out of the news and out of the awareness of the public, view. And now that has bubbled to the surface and taken over. And now we have to enforce patriotism. We have to we have to actually make it a price that you have to pay to not be patriotic, right? We have to make sure that we bury those people that aren't patriotic, which is not natural because if we were living properly, and I think personally, soldiers should also take a very close look at what they're devoting their life to. I don't think that just because you became a soldier, that I should, stand up when you walk by. I think there's a time for disobedience on the parts of the soldiers too. It's like, no, this is not a dharmic war. This is not right. Like Vietnam. People were like, this is not right. No, I'm not going to respect that. No, I'm not going to honor that. If you chose to do that, then you get what you chose, right? I don't wish anything on you, but I certainly let you go the direction you chose to go, right? There comes a time where you have to say, look, this is just not human. This is just not the proper thing. And that's for all of us. It's not about patriotism. It's not about whether you believe in the country or not. It's not whether we need a military or not. That's all given. But it is about what are your values and what are you fighting for? What are you throwing your life down for? If you're throwing your life down for greed, I don't care what your ideal is. You know, you've wasted it. And I'm terribly sorry about that. It's a tragedy. But it would be more of a tragedy for me to encourage others to do the same without saying something. right? To go on with a blind worship of a job, right? So yes, in a dharmic time and as a fundamental regular, yes, we they should be highly honored and highly respected, unless there's a very obvious reason that they shouldn't be.
So Swamiji, do they get a choice whether they want to go to fight or not? Got to, because I saw some videos on the news that there were some people, the Marines were very shouting away in the parliament, and they were forced out. I mean, they were handcuffed.
Yeah.
So I
No,
don't know.
they will not be encouraged because they need to be under control. So they'll have to pay a price for saying no. They'll go to jail most likely. They'll probably be taken out of the military in a dishonorable way. That's right. That
So they
those are the people I would honor. Those are the people that I would say thank you very much for having some courage. Thank you for standing up and countering an illegal uh, instruction.
yeah,
Thank you for standing up and refusing to shoot protesters. Thank
yeah.
you for standing up and refusing to populate, concentration camps. Thank you for standing up and for refusing to fight a war of greed. That's where honor comes from, not from your job. Right. And this whole idea of that soldiers should just blindly follow the teachings of the commander or the commands of the commander, that's what leads to what happened in Germany. You know, that's where that goes. Because if you are leading people in a dharmic way, in a way that is consistent with our nature as human beings, and you don't have to throw your soldiers in prison for not going to war. You don't have to convince the public to be patriotic. That's the whole point. It's not whether it's a military or not a military. It's whether are you going for an ideal that is human and shared, or are you not? You know, and if you're not, I'm not going to pretend to respect you. You know, I'm going to look at you and think you really should be standing up right now and
So
being as courageous as you put yourself forward to be
yeah.
by paying a price for your principles. That's what a soldier does, pays a price for his principles, not just obeying. Anybody can do that. A dog does that. We
No,
don't
so
even,
obeying means he goes to fight, but I wonder if he can really fight if he doesn't believe in it at the ground there, and when he gets there.
no. Well, he doesn't have a choice about whether he fights or not. He either fights or dies. But that is what happens. That's why the country will not thrive with an undharmic leadership. Because yeah, who's going to go out there and fight for something they don't believe in? There's even, there's even recordings of the soldiers calling themselves Epstein's army. It's like they know there's no way we're going to win a war like that. For winning a war, you need that inspiration of just again a dharmic war, the inspiration to fight because you're fighting for something fundamentally meaningful and beautiful. And these people that what we're doing, politics aside, again, this isn't a matter of politics. They form it that way so that they can shove people into corners. It's not politics. This is humanity. We have no reason to be doing what we're doing. You know, no reason to be doing what we're doing. And the ones that are being put forward are easily disproved, easily demonstrated that that's not really what's going on. Right. And so at times like this, yeah, I know it's a weird thing. I'm not calling for revolution. I'm not calling that anything, but I am saying if we want our military to be respectable, to be respected, then we need their ideas to be respectable. And if we're not using them for ideals that are respectable, then it's hypocrisy to pay respect to that. It's not true. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And I can already see what's going to happen when this video hits the web, but I'm not saying vote for this person, that person because of parties. I am saying vote for this person, not, or that person based on character, right?
Yeah,
Based,
that is the grassroots level. I feel that even in the schools and all, like they should be teaching that okay, non-violence is should be there, but where there is a dharmic fight, you should be able to raise your voice. But now what's happening is
the opposite.
um, it's really opposite. I
Mhm.
see in schools like administrative people are not able to stand up for the teachers because the students are so violent. They will they are scared of their school reputation and the money they will not be getting. So because of that, they don't want to protect their own teacher.
Right. And so this is where it comes down to the individual. Be true to your values and be aware of what's going on at the schools that your children are at. Meet with your teachers to find out what's going on for them. Listen to your kids, ask them how's it going? What's going on at school? Drop in and talk to the volunteer. You know, if you've got the time. But at least be in touch and be active in your awareness of what's going on and what the values are. And do what you can in a positive way as an individual. It doesn't have to be a movement, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Just be a beautiful person going about your life in a way that will affect those around you. And when you see school boards doing things that are not part of our values as a culture, as a society, doing things that are not dharmic, not in line with love, wisdom, and existence, say something, write a letter. That may be all you do. That may be enough. Just do your part. If you don't know what it is, take it to the shrine, right? The, yeah. Anyway. All right. Pope John Paul II, in the face of the man-made calamity that every war is, one must affirm and reaffirm again and again that the waging of war is not inevitable or unchangeable. Humanity is not destined to self-destruction. Clashes of ideologies, aspirations, and needs can and must be settled and resolved by means other than war and violence. Right? Just we have to, at the fundamental level, respect each other. There's going to be differences. There are differences, right? And instead of limiting our conversation to 240 characters, we need to sit down and become friends. We need to sit down and listen, right? I think that's the first step. That's why I say the Vedantin, the special role of a Vedantin, that when we sit down with somebody, our primary role is to listen, to hear them, to find out where they are, how they see God, how they see the world, how they see what's going on. And once you've shown them the respect of listening and learning and understanding where they're standing, I can tell you that they will respond with respect toward you when you have a suggestion or when you have a value, a different value, you know. But this happens at the fundamental level. Don't we got to resist this knee-jerk urge to hate, to judge, to think that we understood somebody, like all of these things, and I see it's across the board, that you see it online all the time. Liberals think boom, 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 boom. You know, conservatives think boom, 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 and they're insulting all, on both sides. It's always an insulting list. It's always a list of stupidity, right? And it's usually written by somebody on the opposite team. It's a conservative writing about what a liberal is, and a liberal writing about what a conservative is. That's not our role. If I believe this way, it's not my role to write about what the other team believes, right? It's up to me to listen, to learn what the other team believes, and to find respect for it in finding out why are they leaning that way? Why are they seeing it that way? Why are they feeling that way? Because their life is different than mine. Their experience is different from mine. And I'm not very good at any of this, so I'm not speaking from a high tower. I'm really speaking from the trenches. I'm wrestling with myself, because I watch these videos. I'm inflamed. I feel that anger. I feel the inside. And I'm trying to find a way forward. And I think, as I see it so far, the way forward is for us to pick our ideal. And we are going to make our life's conversation about that ideal. We are not going to buy into that ideal. We're not going to buy into that flow of thought. We're not going to counter it either. There's no, that's just part of the part. We just become part of the cogs in the machine if we just stand up and oppose that. So it's not that we're opposing anything. We're standing up with a new voice for love, for wisdom, you know, through our being, a voice of understanding and a voice of caring and a voice of compassion and a voice of wisdom. And we're going to tell that story. Let the waves of the media tell whatever story they want to tell. I don't care. But in my daily life, from person to person, this is the story I'm going to tell. I love you. I will help alleviate the suffering that you have if you can tell me how I can do that. Right? I will be here to listen to you. You can at least always get a hug and a smile from me if I'm unable to do anything more for you. Right? I can give you myself. And this is where we need to go as individuals in this. Don't get caught up in the rhetorics and the nonsense of the thing on a big scale. The big scales we don't have any authority in. It's how you feel toward the people on your bus. It's how you feel toward the people that are obviously suffering around us right now. I love those YouTube videos of these people that pay people's grocery bills, you know, and things like this. That to me, that's the way. If you care about the poor, go somewhere where the poor are and do something that helps, and learn first. Don't go in thinking you know how to help them and you know what best needs to be done. First, go in and start talking. First, go in and start asking questions. Find out, how did they get into this situation? What is the circumstances? What things are working, what aren't, and how can I most help? Right? It's like, because that's part of the problem. We think we know what the problems are. We go out and we try and solve the problems we think people are having, but those aren't the problems because our lives are just too different for us to understand those problems. And so part of peace is understanding this and getting rid of ignorance in ourselves by listening first and listening mostly and talking little, right? The complete opposite of what I'm doing right now. But in that way, right? So this is what's coming forward here.
Yeah, the experience I had in my family, I learned one word, validation. This is validation is sort of listening, right? What is other person problem is. Without that, you really cannot give love.
It, yes, that is exactly right. Love, that is the first step of love, to listen. That's presence. That's just being with somebody. Nothing being said, nothing being done. Simply establishing yourself as being with them. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's all they want. They just want somebody to be with them, to share their grief, or to just be next to somebody that they just feel somebody is here. Somebody sees me. Somebody understands. I'm not alone, right? It's like we're not going to be able to solve the world's troubles. We may not be able to solve any trouble, but we can certainly sit next to somebody in their trouble and be with them in their trouble, be with them in their grief. You know, I think that that's very important, and I think there's plenty of opportunity to do that. And if we're not aware of our opportunity, then go somewhere and sit in public for a while and watch until Mother tells you how you can help, what you can do. Right? Go and open yourself to the plight. Get to know people. Take a bus for the first time, right? And sit on the bus next to somebody and ask them about their life. If you do it with respect, they'll answer. They'll tell you about it. You can find troubles. You can find ways of serving. watch and listen, and then take it to the shrine. And after that, act. All right. We'll stop there for today.